Hi, so you're welcome back. So in this video, we are going to continue from where we stopped and we're going to design this dashboard from scratch. And we're also going to work on the mobile responsiveness and then also work on the dark mode version. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is how I get inspiration. So let's go over to this page, mood board. So right here, I've actually curated like a collection of work that inspire me. How I come about these designs that I have here is most times when I'm scrolling through Pinterest, maybe I'm looking for inspiration for some other project and I just randomly see a dashboard that looks modern, and sometimes it range from different things. Probably their typography, it might be the colors, it might be the layout, or it might even be like just how clean the work looks. And I'll just copy it out and just paste it in one particular Figma file. Anytime I want to work, I will just come back and actually get it from there. So I'm just going to show you some websites that I use. So the first website is Pinterest. And there's one thing I want you to note. Pinterest is also good for dashboard design inspiration, but you need to be very, very, very careful with what you're picking from Pinterest, because don't forget there are people that have posted jobs here 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So you need to look out for projects that are recent and projects that are looking modern. So you don't end up designing a dashboard for your client and it's something that looks like something that was designed in 2015. You need to be careful and make sure it's really modern. So because most times I see people design and sometimes I make that mistake also. So I'm telling you from experience. Let's just say something like this. But okay, let's see this. I like the simplicity. I'll just copy it and then go over to my Figma file and then paste it in my Figma file. And I've saved it like that. So anytime I'm looking for inspiration for any project in the future, I can just come back here and pick it. But my advice would be checking out top companies like Notion, Stripe, ClickUp, that have like recent dashboard that are functional. Many people use mobile these days. So if you're designing your dashboard, it should be usable on mobile. So same thing here. I might just search for dashboard UI design. So it's just simple as that. I don't think I should be teaching you this because I know many of you have already done this search before. But I think the only advice I'll just leave you with is always know what you're picking from this place and put at the back of your mind. Just like I'm saying it multiple times because it's very important. Most people forget that. So even Behance, although Behance, how I do Behance is whenever I see a project that interests me, I'll just appreciate that project by liking that project, just appreciate that project. That project automatically appears here in my appreciation tab. So I can always come back and check out. So you can see some of the projects I have here. They are very nice. And most times I tend to click those projects and go through those projects and make sure that I'm getting inspired by something from that project before I appreciate it. And sometimes I just leave a comment, or you can also create a mood board here on Behance and just add those. Like you see this one, it was like Next FinTech Exploration, Great UI 100%. So depends on what you are actually trying to look out for. So you can create mood board for different things. But I rarely use mood board. Most times I just appreciate the project and then come back and use it. And then finally, we have X. So for X, I will just search the same thing. I can decide to just copy the image, and then I'll just go over. So I'll just hit K to scale it down. Keep picking and just keep curating like a collection of work that you like, and then get inspiration from them. So that's that about me getting inspiration from the net. But my best advice is for you to check out free products and also see how sometimes try to screenshot each of the flows and so that you can actually have a feel of how it is to design empty states before data starts coming in. Not every time designing just dashboard that already have data on them. So we're going to go over to my dashboard, and this time around, I'm just going to create a new design file so we can start creating from scratch. I'm just going to quickly go over to this place and just copy the logo, because we will be needing the logo. I think that's the only thing we'll be needing for this design. I'm just going to pick out the logo here. I'm just going to copy this, come back here, and then paste it. I'm going to name this logo, and then we're going to change this to hog. So before we move forward, let's quickly rename our file. Let's call this Eduvort tutorial. I think I spelled this wrong. All right, so now that we have this, the next thing I'm just going to quickly do, although we're not going to do wireframes and all that, I'm just going to design like what we already have. So the next thing we're just going to bring in now is a desktop frame. So I'm going to call this dashboard. And then let's push this here. So for this particular tutorial, we are going to progressively build our components. We're not going to bring in anything from there. We're just going to create our components from scratch. And as we move forward in the design, we are going to keep creating and adding to our component library. Let's quickly set up our color palette. I'm just going to use the plugin called Foundations Color Generator. So first, we are going to establish our gray color palette. So we're going to name it gray. It's good to set up your gray color palette. 667185. Let me hit enter. And then I'm going to create style. So I'll just quickly click outside here. So you can see foundation, and when you click on it, you can see gray, and you can see that everything has appeared here. So we have successfully done that for the gray color. So now let's create our primary color. 005EF0. So I'm going to create that also. And we're also going to create some other colors. Let me quickly create for green color. So the green color is going to be 1B7405. And then I'm going to create an orange color. So this is FF9923. Probably if we need to add any other color in the future, we'll manually add that one. So now that we have this, now that we've set up our color foundation, and I think it's now time for us to, but let's make this a component first, because our logo is definitely going to be a component. So let's make it a component. So logo is now a component. Let's see if there's any other thing. Let's make sure we name everything here. So I'm just going to call this Eduvort icon. Let's call this group. I don't know why we have a lot of things there, but I think it's an SVG file. That is why it is that way. So we're just going to leave it that way now. And now we're going to start creating the structure of our dashboard design. So there's a way I create my dashboard design. Make sure you are always paying attention to your layers. For the background, we have like a background color. Let's quickly put like a background color so we can differentiate what we are. So this is supposed to be the sidebar, but let's add color to the main frame first. 50. And this is close to what we have there. Let me change the page color to like D9099 and see. Okay, I think D9099 works better. So we can actually see what we are doing. And then I'm just going to change this. This is just going to, for now, we're going to add a white fill to this so we can actually see that we're creating a sidebar. So I'm going to name this sidebar. Then I'm going to push it to the top. Well, let's just use the positioning to do that. So top and the left. Then I'm going to drag it down. And then now that I've dragged it down, I'm just going to change this to like 240 pixels because that's what I like my sidebar to be, 240 pixels. And then now that I've done that, I'm going to create another frame. So this one is going to be called container because it's going to house our navbar and then the main content area. So we're going to call this container. Let's put the sidebar at the top and then container is next. So now that we have container, we now have to now create two more sections inside of this. So this is now going to be, we're going to push this to the top and then let's just keep this at 60 for now. The height for this at 60. Let's just make sure that it has the same. So the width of our container is 1,200 and then the width of the navbar is 1,200. So we're going to change this to navbar. So now that we have navbar, I'm now going to create another section. So let's add a white color to this so that we know that we've added the navbar there. So the final section now will now be the main content area, which will now house every other component that we want to have. So we will now call this main content area. So this is where we're going to house the entire content area. So now we are now going to add auto layout to the main container. So I'm just going to add auto layout to it. Now, if you look at the height of this particular container, now it's saying it's 60, which is like the regular height for our navbar. The reason why it's reduced to 60 is because this main container frame is currently in absolute positioning. And when something is in absolute positioning, it definitely means that that stuff doesn't respond to auto layout. So we are going to remove it from absolute positioning. And now you can see the height of the container has changed to 1,034. So we're going to remove the gap. See this pink line here is indicating that there's a gap here. We don't need that gap, so I'm just going to change it to 0. So now that we have it, we now know that there are different things here. So we have created the structure. So this is basically the structure of a dashboard. Then every other thing will just be inside. So let me push this to the top. Let me push the logo to the top. So this comes first before all this. So let's work on the sidebar right now. So for the sidebar, the first thing I'm just going to create is the section that will house the logo. So I'm just going to center this properly, push this to the top, and I'm just going to reduce this. Let's make it 60. We want it to always be on the same height, with the nav bar. So whatever we have here for the logo should always have the same height as the nav bar. And now that we have established the sections, there's no need to add colors here. So I'm just going to remove the color that we have here. And I'm also going to remove the color from the nav bar. But just always know that these things are here, even if they are currently invisible. And then the container has its own color. So the background color for the container is we're going to use for the container. We're just going to use FAFAFA. And then we're going to add like a stroke. So for the stroke, which is like the outline, we're going to use grid 200. So this is going to be outside. And we want the outline to only appear here, although it's already appearing there. We want to give it like this kind of like little depth effect there. So I'm just going to give it like a corner radius of 24. But the corner radius is just going to affect this side. That's the left side. So the right side is going to be 0 and this other side is going to be 0. And then finally, we're just going to change the so we want it to only be visible by the left. That's the outline. The stroke, we want it to be visible only on the left. So that's what we are going to do. So this is basically how it looks now. This is basically how it looks. although it looks too strong and I don't like that. I'll just have to reduce the stroke to like 0.5, 0.5. We don't want it to be too visible. Yeah, something like this look okay. So this is what I want. So now that we've established this, it's time to work on our navbar. So we're going to go back here and then select this and then push this inside of here and center it properly. So I want the distance from this to this should be 16. So I'm just going to keep moving it till I get to 16. So I want the top and bottom to also be 16. So to do that, instead of trying to move it around, I'm just going to apply auto layout to it. This is already 16 and I want top and bottom to also be 16. And then I'm just going to drag it. So now that I've dragged it, I'm just going to call this logo container. So now that we have this, the next thing that we're going to work on now is the search. So we're just going to create another frame that will host the search. So we're going to create our search component. So I'm just going to close this gap. And then I'm just going to create another, or let's create the search component outside. So I'm just going to call it search. Remember, I told you that we're going to be creating our components progressively. I'm just going to move this here. Then we're going to open huge icon. So let's quickly do some setup before we bring that in. So I'm just going to set up some things. Let me call this logo. Then I'm just going to bring this inside of here. So let's do a little structuring. So I'm just going to call this logo design. And I'm just going to give it a gray color. This is just going to be like 16. And we're going to make it medium. Although we're going to be using the Inter font here. So Inter is going to be our typography. So for now, we're just going to correct that. So the next thing that we're going to create, we're going to call these icons. So we don't need this here. So I'm going to also change it here. So we're going to look for the search icon. So I'm going to select this frame so that I can just add it. So now that I've added it, I'm just going to push it downwards. So I deleted the header, so I'm just going to do that again and just add the header. I don't like the fact that this is going to be auto, please. And of this also, we're going to change this to auto. We don't want any line height there. I think this is too close. I think 24 should be okay. Or 20 is not bad. So we're just going to name these icons. So now we have our first icon. And then I'm now going to make this a component. So every icon on this project that we're going to be creating should be a component. So now I can now copy the instance of that icon and place it inside here. And then the next thing I'm going to do. So remember what I said, our typography that we're going to be using is Inter. So with time, we will arrange all this. For now, the work might just look messy, but with time, we're just going to arrange everything. So it's important you do this. I would have skipped this step, but I just wanted to see how to design things in the right way. You don't have to always, leave everything to chance or maybe designing without components. So we're just going to start here. So the first thing that we are going to do is to create this. So to create this, I'm just going to add auto layout to this, stretch this, and then add some text. So the text will be search here. And then I'm just going to change this to like 14. I think medium looks okay. And then we're going to change it to our gray text. And then I'm just going to push it inside here. And then let's see the gap between them. I want the gap to be 8. 8 is fine, and I can use 16. And then we're going to add stroke to it. So the stroke will be our outline. So the outline will be this, and we're going to make this 100%. Or let's change this to like 12. I think 12 doesn't look bad, or 8 looks okay. So 8 looks okay. Let me push this inside of here. And then we're going to add auto layout to this frame. So this frame is going to be search. So I'm just going to add auto layout to this, and then the top and bottom should be like 32 and the side should be like 16. So this is what we want. Although this looks weird, so I'm just going to change it to like 12. And then all our icons on this should be 20. We're going to be using a fixed icon value of like 20. So don't forget that. Let's see if that reduced. Okay, reduce also. So this is looking to, so I'm just going to change this to regular. So now that we have this so far, let's do one more thing. So I like putting this outside, and then let's change this to maybe like 0.5. All right, so I'm going to preview this to make sure that we are designing what looks good. So I'm going to use the scale to scale it down, although this looks okay. So we are just going to continue. So far, this is what we have. I'm just going to remove this. So now that we are done with this, I think we should now move to the next phase. So the first page link that we are going to have there is the dashboard. And this is going to be regular medium. Then I'm going to hold Shift A to actually apply auto layout to it. And I'm going to call this nav link. We're going to remove any gap. Then the top and bottom is going to be 8. And then we have this at 16. So now that we've created this, we're now going to add like an icon there. So I'm just going to push it to the right, to the left rather. And then the gap is just going to be 12. I think 12 is too much, so 8 looks good. Let me duplicate this. And make sure. So we're going to create this, although we're going to make this a component very soon. I'm just going to change this to fill and then push this to the right. So I think this looks okay. And then this will be 16 top and bottom, not 32 like the other one. So now that we have the first one, I think this looks okay. So this is like 208. That's what I wanted to establish there. So this is going to be 208. And we're going to add another icon. And this icon this time around is going to be by this side. And then I'm going to make it a component and then add variants to it. So we're going to change this property to state. And then the state for this is called, or let's just leave it at default. Let's leave this at default. And let's call this header. And then let's establish a components property for this. So we're just going to name it test. And then this also, we're going to add component property to it. And we're going to call this left icon. Then this is going to be right icon. So we're going to create another component. We're just going to call it right icon. And then we're also going to work on the visibility. So I'm going to select this and add. So we're going to call this show left icon. And then this also will be show right icon. So now that we have this, the next thing that we're now going to do now is to now work on this stuff. So we are going to have like two states. The first state is just going to be the default state, and the next one is going to be the selected state. So for the default state is just going to be neutral. There is nothing happening there. So the default state is basically when no page is selected yet. So we are going to change everything in the default state. We're going to change the colors. So I'm just going to change the colors of the icon and this also. So this is basically the default state. And then the selected state is going to have, let's just say 50%. Let's see how 50% work of this. And then everything here is just going to be in black. Although this is going to change and this is going to be semi-bold. I just hope it doesn't change this guy. All right, so now that we have this, and then we are now going to add corner radius to it. So the corner radius is going to be 8 for this also. So I'm just going to copy this and then paste to replace here, and then paste. So for this, we're going to turn off the left icon. Oh, no, the right icon instead. So I would like to arrange, I don't like the way it's scattered like this. There's a procedure I want it to look. That's how I want it to look. So first we should have like the left icon. We should be able to show the left icon first. Or let the text go up. So the text comes first, then show left icon or hide left icon. So show right icon or hide right icon. So that's how I want to. So you see, first you can edit the text and then you can decide to show the left icon or hide it, show it or hide it. So now we're going to hide all of this. And then we also want to create the header. So for the header, I'm going to create the header. Okay, we call this header. I'm going to change this. This is not header, please. We're going to call this selected. So this is going to be the selected state. And then we're going to add one more state, which is like the header. So this is going to be the header. So for the header, we don't need any icon here. I'm just going to detach this and we're just going to manually turn off the appearance for this. And then this icon is just going to be 16, not 20 anymore. So it's just going to be smaller than the rest. And then we don't have any background color. So I'm going to remove the background color. And then this is what we're going to have. So this is going to be 14, although we're going to keep it at medium. And we're going to change this to primary. So now you notice something. Anything we change here is actually affecting the rest of this. So we're just not going to do that. So we're just going to leave this at this. So for this, now we're going to change this to the header. So I'm just going to change this to header. So this is going to be our header. And then the gap between this is going to be 8, not 10. So this is what we've done so far. So you can see, although I'm not seeing our right icon. Okay, I turned it off. So this is what we have currently. And then our icon here is going to have another color, not the same color. So this is going to be our gray color. Yeah. So for this, we're going to have like more options. Although we want to actually create like a little interaction here that we can actually turn off this entire section just by clicking here. And when we want to open it, we click here also, it opens. So that's what we want to do next. But let's bring in, let's change some of these details. Then I will just show you what I want to do next. So this is dashboard. And then this one, we are going to call it added product. And then we're going to duplicate this. And finally, we're going to call this marketplace. You know what? Let's just make everything here. Let's add auto layout to everything. Okay, it's already in auto layout. So I'm just going to drag it out here and then work on this. So this is going to be a component also. So we're just going to call this interaction. I don't know what to call it, but I'm just going to call it interaction. So now, before we move forward, I would like to add like icons to this. I want to actually add the drop down icon here so we can actually change it. We can actually have different states when the whole thing is open and when it's closed. So let's bring in more icons before we continue. So I'm just going to duplicate this. So let's try to think of some of the icons that we might need. I'm just going to go to plugins and use huge icons. So let's quickly look for down. Then I'm going to add down. Then I'm going to change this to up. All right, this is it. Then I'm going to do left and right. And we're going to need this left open. Then let me use right also. Let's see if we can add one more. Oh, why is it reading 13? Let's fix that quickly. So we are definitely going to add more icons. So for now, I think these icons look okay. And then we're going to select every icon. Although we've already added, we've already made this a component, so there's no need touching this. We're just going to select the fresh ones we just brought in. And then don't click on create component, just click on this drop down here and create multiple components. So now that we've created multiple components, we can easily come here and swap. So I can select this, and then for the right icon, I can decide to change the right icon. So for this, we want to collapse it. So this is the icon for collapse. And I'm going to add more. I'm going to add more options. So we need like, let's just say 5. So the reason why I'm adding 5 is because we have another section that is the creator section that has up to 5 options. That's 5 page links. What I'm trying to say basically is that, let's say for example now, this is one section, and in the next section, we have like 5 instead of 3. So if we finish doing the collapse interaction here, and we just did it with 3. If we want to do for the next, the one that now has 5, except we now create a different interaction for it, which we don't want. We just want this one, this interaction that we're creating for this to work for this to also work for this. So for it to work for this, we're just going to add extra 2. When we are now doing for this, we just turn off the extra 2 and just have 3 instead of having 3 and then looking for an extra 2 later. I don't know if you get, but I just hope that explains it. So I'm going to make this interaction frame a component. And when I make it a component, I'm now going to create a variance for this. So now that I've created a variance for this, so we want to now establish the open and close. So to establish the open and close, we want this to be the closed version and this should be the open version. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to select this, and this, and I'm going to turn it off here. So now that we turn it off, this is how it looks. So I'm just going to now push this one up here. At least let's leave it at 20. So this one is going to be the open state and this is going to be the closed state. So we are just going to swap the icon to down now to indicate that we want it to open. All right, so once someone clicks on this, it opens and they can close it back from here. So now we're now going to make it a Boolean operation. So we're going to call this. So we're going to change this from property to Boolean. And then we're going to call this close. And then we're going to call this open. So now that we have these two, I'm just going to reduce this. So now I'm just going to collect this, copy this, and then come over here. And I'm just going to paste to replace. So the next thing we are now going to do now is just to turn off these two because we don't need it for this first one. And then we're going to call this primary and it's going to be in all caps. Okay. This should be header and it's looking too big. So I'm just going to try to reduce it. Let's change this to 12. All right, I think this looks okay. So now we have dashboard, add product and all that. And I'm just going to select this entire sidebar. So make sure the sidebar is selected and I'm just going to add auto layout to it. And then I'm going to select this and duplicate it 2 times. So here is going to be the creator. And then this is going to be for profile and support. So let's make sure we are renaming this. So for this, we're calling it primary. And for this, we're calling this creator. Then we are turning on the 2 nav links. Although it's supposed to be page link, let's rename it here. Let's call this page. And then this is going to be profile and support. And let's quickly preview that and see what we've got so far. So we've not actually prototyped it, that's why it's not working. So I'm just going to select this and then I'm just going to link this. Make sure you're selecting this first. page link and then move it here. So on click, it's going to change to open, and we're just going to change it to we're going to change it to smart animate. Then same thing when you click here, it just does the same thing. So let's try to see that if that works. So now that we've done that and we've done that correctly, so let's come back now and rename everything. So for this, let's go back to this and then my products. Don't worry, we are going to change the icons very soon. Let's quickly rename everything first, so that when we are bringing in icons, we know the icons we are going to bring in. Okay, I think we missed one. We need, I think after earnings, we have my download. And then we have wallet. And then finally, we have leaderboard. Then let's move over to this. And the first one is profile. So I'm using tab to actually change them. I'm using tab on my keyboard to change the one I'm editing instead of trying to use my mouse. So I'm hitting tab on my keyboard to move it to the next one. So this is settings. And finally, we have help and FAQs. So now that we have this, I think we're done. So now we're just going to now bring in the icons that are going to replace all of this. So if you look here, we have actually made progress so far. So this is what we have. So I'm just going to go back right now and we're going to bring in more icons. So now let's push this here. And let me move this here so that we can actually see what we are changing these icons into. So we're going to search for grid. So let's just edit this one. So we're going to use this for dashboard. And then the next one is product. So we're going to search add product. We're going to search for upload. So I'm going to use this. And the next one is marketplace. So we're going to look for shop. Let's use this. Then the next one, we're going to search for documents. Let me just search for notes. Well, let's use this. And then the next one is going to be earnings. So let's look for coin. And the next one is going to be download. And then the next one, wallet. And then leaderboard. Let's just look for users. So I'm just going to search for user. Then the next one is going to be settings. And the next is going to be help. So I'll add this one, and I'm going to also add this one. So let me quickly think of anything that I might be needing in the future. Let's add graph. Let's just fill that in with probably something like graph, like a graph. And trend. All right, so I'm just going to select everything and then create multiple components. So this is what we want. So now that we've established that, let's change this one after the other. So this, I'm going to look for it here. So this is what it is. And try to make sure that everything is one color. Although this is not going to be, this is going to be, this is not default, this is selected, because this is like the dashboard. So this is going to be, our black color is going to be gray 900. It's not really visible. Let's see if we can edit it from the main component. Well, it's kind of like too much, so I'll just have to select it manually. I don't know, it still looks too much. Or we might as well change this to gray instead. The gray looks too harsh, so let me look for probably like a lighter gray. So for that, we're just going to use E3, EC, F9. So we're going to use that. So I'm just going to go back here. This is how it looks. And then for the next one, let's add another icon. So make sure to change everything to gray. So for product, we're going to look for the product icon. So we're just going to add something like a note. I think this is what we choose as the notebook. So the reason why I'm making it grayed out is to indicate that this is not active and just to establish color hierarchy, basically. So I guess we used the wrong icon there. So that was supposed to be upload. And then the next is wallet. I think I saw wallet somewhere. And then leaderboard. then profile, then settings, then finally help and support. So we are done with this. So the next stage is for us to design the main content area. So we're going to start from the nav bar, and then after the nav bar, we're going to enter into the remaining content part of this tutorial. So let's quickly check what we've done so far. So this is what we've done so far. Let's test run something. Okay, I think I know that this was going to happen. But if we want everything to collapse, there's something we can actually do to make it collapse. So if we want everything to collapse, let's say you're in a scenario where you want everything to collapse. So although we're just going to we're going to edit this. I just hope this doesn't confuse you, but this is the only remedy in case you encounter this problem and you want everything to collapse. No. We are not using Alt to duplicate that. So I'm just going to select this. And then I'm going to open this. So I'm going to hit enter. And then select this one just so that everything I turned off is going to be selected. So what I basically did is I selected this. I hit enter on my keyboard to select every item inside of the frame. So this is the close frame. I hit enter to select everything inside, and I'm going to hold shift and select this dashboard in order to deselect this one and just have the remaining things selected. So I'm just going to turn it on. And now that I've turned it on, I'm just going to add auto layout to it and call it links. And then I'm going to do same for this. And add auto layout and call it links. Hopefully it works. And then what we are now going to turn off is the entire thing. So we're going to turn this entire thing off. So let's try it and see if it works. So I'm just going to try it. So now you see everything turned off. So basically what we just did is just to add everything inside of one frame and it's working. So although there's a little issue, I'm seeing that the text are a little bit too bold. They are looking like they're same level with this. So I'm going to try to change everything to regular. So, but I think this is where we are going to change everything to regular. All right, so this is exactly what I want. So now we are done with the nav bar. So in the next part is to create the nav bar. Although there's one more thing I want to edit before we move on. So this should be 32. All right, so I think that's all set.